Welcome. This is my story. I'm Hugo. When I came home, I found my mom crying. Dad was carrying his suitcase, and it looked like he was leaving. Mom said to Dad, "Please let us support you. We want to be with you until the end." "What's going on?" I asked. "Hugo, your dad was diagnosed with cancer. The doctor gave him 3 months at best. He's leaving home to live his final days as he wishes," Mom replied. I was shocked. "Dad, isn't your condition curable? Please, stay with us."
Son, it's stage 4 cancer, he said. Please don't pressure me. I have a right to live the rest of my days as I wish.
Then he left home. My mom did her best to console me. "Honey, your dad's right. I wish we could be together as a family to support him, but letting him go was the right thing to do." We hugged each other and cried through the night. With my dad gone, we began having financial difficulties. My mom started cleaning people's houses. She wasn't making much, but thankfully we owned our house and didn't have to worry about rent. That's the only reason we were able to get by. My mom and I kept our phones close for the next 3 months, expecting a call from the hospital. We agonized over the possibility of getting messages like, "We lost your father," or a text from Dad saying, "I've been hospitalized." Another month went by. We still hadn't heard any bad news about my dad. We were relieved knowing he was still alive. But one morning, something happened. Something we never expected. The doorbell rang. I heard Mom say, "Are you sure? But that's not possible." I ran to the door. A man stood in the doorway, arms crossed, impatiently watching my mom read through a stack of papers.
As you can see, everything is bought and paid for. Your husband signed off on it. I'm the new owner of this place. You have 10 days to vacate the premises. If you aren't out by then, I'll be forced to get the authorities involved. And I don't want to have to call the police.
How could that be? We'd been worried sick about my dad, and he'd sold off the family house behind our backs. "Mom, can't you do anything?" I asked. "No, sweetie," she replied in shock. "The house is in your dad's name." 10 days later, they kicked us to the curb. We immediately looked to the local homeless shelters for help. We went to the biggest shelter in the city, but they had no beds available. "We're desperate," Mom told the manager. "I'm begging you, please help us." "The shelter can only hold so many people. Ask again next month," she said dismissively. A man who had been listening to our conversation walked up to us.
Hi, the name's Richard. I run the soup kitchen inside the shelter. We could always use more volunteers. If you want to work with us, you can stay in the soup kitchen dorm.
We gladly accepted. My mom was on cooking duty, and I got to work peeling potatoes and onions all day. It was exhausting work, but at least we had food and a place to stay. The dorm was right behind the kitchen. Bunk beds for the other volunteers were set up on each wall. A sickly man was confined to a single bed in the corner. He never spoke, but I could occasionally hear him cry some nights. Richard would check on him, but the man seemed to get angry whenever he saw Richard. One day, Richard took me aside. "Hugo, you're a hard worker. You do a lot of work for us at the soup kitchen. You've got to get back in school. I'm relieving you from your daily duty." I couldn't believe it. I missed seeing my friends, but the school was on the other side of town. Plus, I needed money for the subway. I thanked Richard for covering for me and went to the station to panhandle for fare. I woke up early the following day to make sure I could scrape together the sub money in time. When I got enough, I bought myself a ticket and went to school. I kept begging at the station every weekday. One morning, a lady said to me, "Hugo, hi! I'm your father's old assistant, Mrs. Clements. Do you remember me?" Of course, I remembered Mrs. Clements. She had been working for my dad up until a few years ago, but then she left her job and a new assistant replaced her. When Mrs. Clements asked me how my mom was doing, I told her our story. She was so shocked when I told her my dad had cancer. "I'm so sorry, Hugo. It's rather difficult for me to tell you this, but you have a right to hear the truth. I don't think your father has cancer. Your father was having an affair. He hired his girlfriend after firing me. I heard from my friends at the company that they both left work a few months ago. I followed her on Instagram. She's traveling and shopping all the time, probably with your father. It looks like they are spending the money from the sale of your house on a luxurious trip. By the look of things, she's probably a scammer. I can't grasp how your father fell for someone like her." I returned to the soup kitchen and told my mom everything I had just learned. She was devastated, as I imagined she would be. She collapsed on the floor, sobbing for hours. That day, we realized my dad had ruined our lives with selfishness. Richard saw us crying in the soup kitchen and asked us what was wrong. I told him everything. He stood there, both stunned and saddened by what he'd heard. Our stories have something in common, he began. My wife passed away 3 years ago. My son left home because he blamed me for his mother's death. He was right. Because I had given in to my ambition to make money, I neglected them for a long time. One day, I collapsed at the office. That's how I got diagnosed and discovered I only had a year to live. What a weird coincidence, huh? Your dad lied to you. This was my truth. When I discovered that I didn't have much time left on Earth, I wanted to find my son and make it up to him. But soon, I learned he was homeless, sick, staying here in the same place. You know, he's staying with us in the dorm, though he's still mad at me. I begged him to leave with me, but he won't do it. So I took over the soup kitchen to be close to him. Richard's story moved us very much. We were surprised that the disabled patient in the dorm was his son. Richard asked me to bring him a piece of paper and a pen, and I did. He took the paper and asked me, Hugo, do you know what domain is? Yeah, we learned about it at school. The website's address is called a domain, like youtube.com or amazon.com, I replied. Richard scribbled a few notes on the paper and handed them to me. Go to any internet cafe tomorrow. Visit the site I wrote down there. It's a domain sales marketplace. Log in with the username and password I gave you. There's a precious domain in my account. Put that on sale. What is it? I asked curiously. Richard smiled. Pizza.com. It's one of the world's most valuable domains. Pizza brands are ready to spend millions of dollars on it. When you auction it off, whoever bids the highest owns Pizza.com. I haven't got much life left in me. I donated all my money to the shelter. This domain is the only thing that I have left. You and your mom can start a new life with the money from its sale. In return, I only ask one thing. Please, take my son with you. Make room for him in your house. Accept him into your family and give him the peace he's yearned for his whole life. Will you do this for me? Of course we will. But don't you also want to live with us? My mom asked. If I come with you, my son wouldn't leave, replied Richard. I love serving these people here. I want to spend my final days helping them. I put Pizza.com on sale, just like Richard asked. Pizza brands fought tooth and nail at the auction to outbid each other. The winning bidder bought Pizza.com for $5 million. Thanks to Richard, I'm a millionaire now. We bought a big house. Richard's son accepted our offer and came to live with us. We gave him the best room in the house. He was incredibly moved when he found out what his father had done. We called him and offered forgiveness. Richard, of course, couldn't have been happier, but he still didn't move in with us. He preferred working at the soup kitchen. One day, one of the maids came to my room and said, Your mother is waiting for you at the door. You have a guest. I wondered who it could be. At first, I was shocked to see my dad at the door, but I quickly pieced together why. Your dad says he's very sorry and wants us to forgive him, Mom said with a curt laugh. What do you think? Of course, she was being sarcastic. Shall we forgive him? Son, your mother doesn't believe me, but I miss you. I regret what I've done. I made a huge mistake. That horrible woman was a thief. One morning I woke up and she was gone. She took all the money and ran, he said. My mom's satisfied smile faded into a cold stare. So you were broke and decided to show up here? My dad couldn't respond. He just stared at the floor in shame. How did you find us? I asked. I'm still using the same phone. Used to be mine, after all. It's saved in the Find My Phone app. When the app led me here, I was sure it was the wrong address. I thought you might be working here or something. Dad trailed off momentarily, realizing the disrespect in his tone. I can't express how proud I was to find you on this mansion, he stammered in desperation. I'm sure you have a place for me in this huge house. Please, I want to come home and make things right. Please forgive me. I looked at my dad. He looked miserable. It made no sense to talk to him any longer. I held my mom's arm gently and pulled her aside. Then, without saying a word, I slammed the door in his face. He began screaming wildly and pounding the door. Security personnel stepped in and kicked him off the property. We could hear him crying outside. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
But he'd already burned that bridge. Meanwhile, I was watching the whole thing live on the security cameras. I must admit, seeing my dad on that day for the last time couldn't have been more satisfying.
You've been Tornado Spin Mom. Spin it, and mom it like it's hot. Learn more at Lumi.com.
Welcome to the Here's My Story channel. I'm Matilda. I was going to make popcorn for the first time. I found a recipe online. I drizzled some oil in a pan. I heated it up for a while. Then I added all the kernels into the pan. I think I overheated the oil. Suddenly the kitchen turned into a war zone. The kernels started popping one by one and jumping out of the pan. They were flying at my face, my arms. Every time a kernel touched me, I shrieked. Finally, I managed to close the lid on the pan. I had little burns all over my body. My sister Iris came into the kitchen. "Where's the popcorn? We're already halfway into the movie. Mom wants the popcorn now," she said. I got mad and screamed, "Can't you see what's happening? I burned myself trying to make you popcorn." My mom appeared at the door. She looked around and asked, "Why are you yelling? What is going on in this kitchen?" I replied, about to burst into tears. All of a sudden, the kernel started to pop. I got burns all over my face and my arms. Mom rolled her eyes and said, "How can you be so clumsy? Grab the broom and sweep the floor." Then she turned to my sister and said with a giggle, "Honey, let's go back to our movie. It's so exciting. I can't wait to see what happens next." Iris was my mom's favorite. She didn't even feel the need to hide it. I was the Cinderella of this household, and they weren't even my stepmom or stepsister. My parents divorced 3 years ago. The fighting was so bad, I wasn't even upset about their divorce. My dad moved to Russia for a job. He started working at an oil rig in Siberia. He didn't even have an internet connection like he was. By the way, we had someone else living with us at home, my lovely grandma. Unfortunately, my mom was as horrible to her as she was to me. After my grandfather passed, my grandma remarried. My mom was against that marriage. She left home the day Grandma remarried, and we never saw each other again. Grandma lived in another country. One day, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw her standing in front of me. I was so surprised I invited her in. When my mom saw my grandma, she got upset with me for letting her inside. She asked my grandma rudely what she came for. My grandma said her second husband had died and she needed a place to stay. She had a hard time walking because of an issue in her legs. I begged my mom to let her stay with us because she obviously needed help. My mom was against it at first, but then she found out that my grandma had a retirement plan. She only said yes to get her hands on grandma's retirement savings. My grandma was my favorite person in the world. I loved taking care of her. I went to her room whenever I could. We would chat for hours. Once, she shared, "Iris never talks to me. She doesn't even make eye contact when I'm around. It really gets me. Why do you think she's acting this way?" Laughing, I said to her, "Iris and my mom don't love anyone else but themselves. I'm afraid the only love you will get in this house is from me." Since she had trouble walking, I bought my grandma a walking stick. Thanks to that stick, she was able to get around the house more easily. Normally, she would eat her meals in her room. One night, I insisted that she come to the kitchen for dinner. I was the designated cook in the house, and I cooked a dish she really loved. Grandma was able to come to the kitchen thanks to her walking stick. My mom jumped when she saw her. "Wait, what? We can't even eat in peace in this house?" She took her plate and left. Iris hurried along behind her. Grandma was so sad. She tried not to cry, but I couldn't hold back my tears. I gave her a hug, and we broke down crying. "I apologize on your behalf, Grandma. You don't deserve this at all," I said. She started crying too. We cried for a long time, embracing each other. One day there was a presentation at school about college applications. They suggested those who wanted to go to college should get a head start. That night, I mentioned it to my mom. "I'm going to study really hard and get accepted to a good school," I said. "Why are you thinking about college? You've got so much work to do at home. Just finish high school. That's enough for you. You better get those other ideas out of your head," she yelled. I said, "Mom, do you expect me to stay at home and take care of you for the rest of my life? I want to go to college." My mom looked at me condescendingly. Matilda, you are not capable of going to college. Even if you got accepted, I'm sure you won't be able to finish it, she replied. Iris sided with her. I'm sure she can't do it, Mommy. She can't even make popcorn, but she dreams of going to college, she said, mocking me with a laugh. These words really upset me. I went to my grandma's room in tears. She comforted me. I will talk to your mom. Give me that awesome walking stick, please, she said. Grandma slowly walked around to talk to my mom. Mom was surprised when she saw her. With a determined tone, Grandma said, Matilda will go to college. I will not let you destroy her future. I will take care of her from now on and pay for her college. Mom said, how long did it take you to get here from your room? You can't even walk straight. How will you take care of her? I began laughing hysterically. Mom shook her finger at us. Almost hissing, she said, don't you tell me what to do again, or I will kick both of you out of this house. Understand? I helped Grandma return to her room. I was planning to do this in a few months, but it's time now. Can you please ring my phone? I have an important call to make, she said. It's time for what? Who are you going to talk to, Grandma? I asked. England tight. Tomorrow morning you'll be in for a big surprise, she said, smiling. When I woke up the next morning, I ran to my grandma's room. It was empty. She'd left a short note for me on her bed. Bring your mom and your sister in front of the house exactly at 10 o'clock. I waited impatiently until 10. Then I told my mom and my sister that we needed to go outside. They were intrigued to hear that Grandma had a surprise for us. When we went outside, we saw a convoy of luxury cars parked in front of our house. When the driver saw us, he ran to the car in the front to open the door. We all screamed when we saw who was getting out of the car. It was my grandma, except that she looked great and she had a fabulous dress on. Someone else got out of the car. He was Grandma's age, dressed very differently. He was wearing a local costume and a huge crown over his head. Dear Lily, let me make the introductions. My daughter, Helen, my younger granddaughter, Iris, and our new princess, dear Matilda. When Iris heard this, she